That night, Elise's laugh hit me all wrong, too wild, too reckless. It scraped at my nerves like a rusty blade on tender skin. She was sprawled at the edge of our beat-up leather sofa, thumbing through her phone with a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen in ages, not for me, at least. Adam swinging by in 20, she tossed out, not even glancing my way. Her voice was flat, like she was reading off tomorrow's forecast. From the kitchen, I stared at her, my fingers digging into the countertop. You honestly think this is fine? What's that supposed to mean? She shot back. What's your deal? She dropped her phone and finally looked at me, her eyebrows raised in fake puzzlement. You know exactly what I'm getting at, I said, keeping my tone steady but sharp. This thing with you and Adam, whatever it is, it ain't right. Her mouth twisted into a smirk, cold as ice. Oh, Ryan, don't play the saint. Our marriage has been crumbling for years. I'm just the one with the guts to face it. Guts. That's what she called sneaking off with another guy, slipping out into the night like a bandit and leaving me to sift through the wreckage of what we had. So what's this all about? I waved at the shimmering gold dress she had on, the one I'd picked out for our anniversary 2 years back. You setting up a new life with Adam now? She let out a frustrated huff. It's just a party, Ryan. A swinger thing, all right? No ties, no promises, just grown-ups having a good time. You wouldn't get it. There it was again, that condescending edge, like I was some clueless kid who couldn't wrap his head around her need to break free. My hands balled into fists, and I fought to keep the anger from boiling over. Don't come back, I said, my voice trembling. You walk out that door, and we're through. Her smirk stretched into a grin, like I'd just handed her a winning lottery ticket. Ryan, don't make a soap opera out of this. You'll thank me later. With that, she snatched her purse, strutted to the door, and vanished into the dark. 3 days went by, 3 days of dead silence. At first, I was too pissed to give a damn. Let her have her fling, I told myself. But by the second night, when her side of the closet stayed untouched and her phone kept going to voicemail, a knot of unease started twisting in my gut. By the third morning, I'd had enough. I got on the phone with a divorce lawyer, started the paperwork, and swore I'd move on. Whatever she was chasing with Adam or at that stupid party, she could keep it. But 2 weeks later, the quiet shattered. The phone rang just past 8 a.m. while I was sipping on a bitter cup of coffee and skimming emails I didn't care about. Mr. Bennett, the voice on the line was crisp, all business. This is Detective Blake with Fairfax County Police. Got a minute to talk about your wife, Elise Reynolds? Ex-wife, I thought, but I kept my mouth shut. What's going on? We've got reason to believe your wife might have been caught up in something bad. Her last known whereabouts were at a private home in Rockford. My chest went tight. Something bad? What the hell does that mean? There was a pause, the kind that makes your stomach drop. She went to a private event on October 14th. We think she never left the place. My brain spun back to that party, the one she'd left for with Adam. Adam, I blurted. She was with some guy named Adam. We know about Mr. Foster, the detective said. He's being looked into as well. Mr. Bennett, we need you to come to the station to answer a few questions. An hour later, I was at the precinct, my head a mess of what-ifs. Detective Blake met me in a drab gray room, his face all business. He pushed a photo across the table, a huge mansion with tall gates and perfectly trimmed bushes. This is where the party happened, he said. Belongs to a guy named Victor. Ring any bells? I shook my head, drawing a blank. The name didn't ring a single bell. Detective Blake leaned in closer. Victor Kane's a big deal in some circles, loaded, powerful, and known for throwing some pretty wild shindigs. What kind of wild are we talking about? I pressed. He paused, picking his words like they were fragile glass. Sex parties, sure, but it goes deeper, events with some ugly vibes. Whispers about violence, manipulation, even human trafficking. The room tilted under me. And you're saying Elise? Blake's eyes held mine, steady and unyielding. We've got video from that night. It shows your wife walking into the place, but nothing shows her leaving. My gut twisted, churning with a nasty mix of rage, dread, and something heavier I couldn't put a name to. What the hell happened to her? Blake stayed silent, dodging the question. Instead, he pushed another photo my way. It was a blurry still from a security feed, Elise in that gold dress, striding through a fancy entrance hall. A guy I figured was Adam trailed behind her. But it was the third shape that froze my blood, a dark figure lurking at the edge of the shot, watching her. Who's that guy? I asked, my voice tight. Blake's expression turned grim. We don't know yet. But we think that's the person behind whatever went down next. What went down? I snapped, my temper flaring. Blake looked at me, his face shadowed with something heavy. That's what we're trying to piece together. Driving to that mansion felt like diving headfirst into a bad dream I couldn't shake. After leaving the station, my head was a storm of questions and a growing fire in my chest, pure anger. They said they didn't have enough for a warrant. The footage wasn't clear enough. That sprawling estate, with its high walls and iron gates, was locked up tight behind legal red tape. But I wasn't waiting for a judge's signature. For 3 days, I'd been glued to my laptop, scouring Elise's social media, chasing down every crumb I could find about this Victor Kane and his shady parties. Most of it was smoke, hushed rumors in sketchy forums and chat rooms, drugs, extortion, worse. Some folks said Kane was untouchable, his money a shield against the law. I didn't give a damn about the law. When I pulled up to the estate that night, the gates towered over me like the mouth of some metal monster. No guards were around, but cameras blinked along the fence line. I parked my truck a ways down the road and climbed the barrier, my pulse hammering in my ears. The grounds were dead quiet, the kind of stillness that makes your skin crawl. The mansion sat in the middle, its windows glowing faintly, like a beast sizing me up. I stuck to the shadows, moving fast. Elise's face was burned into my brain, her smug grin that night, the way her gold dress caught the light like a flame. Rage kept me going, drowning out the doubts nagging at me. I found a side door cracked open and slipped inside. The air hit me hard, thick with sweet perfume and a sharp, coppery tang. The main hall stretched out in front of me, its shiny marble floor bouncing back the faint glow of a chandelier. It was too damn quiet, no chatter, no music, just a low electric hum. I crept down a hallway, passing a row of shut doors. Then I heard it, voices, low and clipped, like they were arguing under their breath. I flattened myself against the wall, straining to catch the words. She shouldn't have pushed back, one guy said, his tone sharp with annoyance. Victor doesn't take kindly to rebels. She's not the first one, another chimed in, cool as ice. He'll handle her like he did the rest. My hands curled into fists, anger surging like a wildfire. The voices came from a study, its double doors slightly open. I peeked in. 2 guys in sharp suits stood by a desk, looking way too relaxed. A monitor between them showed a grainy feed of a basement. And there she was, Elise. Slumped against a wall, her dress ripped, her face pale and bruised. My breath caught, a mix of fury and a gut punch of helplessness. Victor wants her out of the picture by dawn, one of the suits said. No messes left behind. Something in me broke loose. I didn't think, just charged into the room, clutching a fire extinguisher I'd snagged from the hallway. The first guy spun around, eyes popping wide, but he was too slow. I smashed the canister into his face with a nasty crack, and he dropped like a sack of bricks. The second guy came at me, yanking a knife from his belt. I swung again, but he dodged, the blade tearing through my shirt and nicking my side. A hot stab of pain hit me, but I pushed through. Dropping the extinguisher, I tackled him, slamming him hard against the desk. The monitor hit the floor with a crash, Elise's image blinking out. "Who the hell are you?" the guy hissed, squirming under my hold. "Her husband," I snarled, smashing his head into the desk. He went slack, slumping to the ground. I couldn't waste a second. Grabbing the knife, I bolted down the hall, chasing the faint buzz of machinery. If that video was real, there had to be a way to the basement. At the end of a tight staircase, I found a door, its lock old and brittle. The knife was no help, but a fire axe nearby did the job. The door splintered under my swings, and I stepped into a massive underground room that stank of damp rot and hopelessness. Cages lined the walls, most empty, but in the far corner, I spotted her. "Elise!" I yelled, rushing over. Her eyes cracked open, hazy and weak. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice barely there. "It's me, babe," I said, slicing through the chains on her wrists. "We're getting out of here." But as I pulled her up, heavy boots thumped down the stairs. Victor Kane. He stepped out of the dark, his presence icy and in control. Two goons flanked him, their faces hard as stone, guns in their hands. "You must be Ryan," Victor said, his voice slick as oil. "I've heard all about you." "You're letting us walk," I said, waving the knife. Victor let out a dark chuckle. "You don't know who you're messing with." His men moved first. The fight was a messy blur of violence. One charged me, but I ducked to the side, jamming the knife into his ribs. He screamed, hitting the ground. The other swung a baton, catching me in the side. Pain roared through me, but I kept going, fueled by adrenaline. I grabbed his arm, twisting until it cracked, and he wailed in pain. Victor just stood there, watching with a calm, almost entertained look. When it was done, I stood there, gasping, blood dripping from my knuckles. Victor clapped slowly, his grin like a wolf's. "Not bad. But it doesn't change a thing." I raised the knife, ready to lunge, but a sharp sting hit my neck. The world spun, a needle. Victor stepped closer as my vision faded. "Sleep tight, Ryan." When I came to, everything was a blur. Elise was gone, and I was slumped in my truck, parked outside my house. The knife was missing, my clothes spotless, no blood, no fight, no proof. Victor's voice echoed in my head, "This changes nothing." But I wasn't done. Not by a mile. 3 days later, a message came, like Victor was rubbing it in. A slick black envelope slid under my door, stamped with a gold K. Inside was a single page, the words typed in sharp, clean font, "Let her go. Let this go. Stay alive, or you're done." It wasn't just a threat, it was a vow. I spent that day knocking back whiskey, staring at the note until the words swam together. By midnight, the fear had burned out, replaced by something hard and cold. They thought they could make Elise disappear, like she was nothing. They thought they could bully me into shutting up, they had me all wrong. For the next week, I threw everything I had into getting ready, scraping together every tool and trick I could find. Kane figured his money made him bulletproof, his influence a shield no one could crack. But I had something he'd never understand, a life already torn to pieces, with nothing left to hold me back. First move, chop the beast down piece by piece. Victor Kane wasn't just one guy, he was a whole damn system, a tangle of deals, debts, and allies. I dug up names tied to his parties, everyone from property managers to the security outfits he hired. A couple of well-placed bribes and anonymous tips to the Fed started the dominoes falling. His offshore accounts got locked up, his shell companies landed on watch lists, and his buddies started sweating. It was a quiet jab, just enough to rattle him without him sniffing out it was me pulling the strings. Second move, strike at his heart. That mansion was Kane's crown jewel, a stronghold for his twisted games. But even castles have soft spots. I'd clocked the backup generators during my last trip, stashed in an outdoor shed. Take those out, and his whole security setup would crash. I crept back to the estate under the cover of night, carrying a makeshift EMP device and enough gas to light up the sky. The plan was clean: zap the electronics, burn the place down, and let Kane know I wasn't playing. The EMP did its job like a dream. The mansion went pitch black, alarms dead, cameras blind. I slipped through the grounds, tucking gasoline-soaked rags in key spots. When the flames roared to life, a grim satisfaction settled in my chest. The mansion blazed against the dark, its fancy facade crumbling to dust. But this was just the opening act. Third move: bring down the hammer. Kane hit back, like I knew he would. He sent a couple of goons to have a chat, a nice way of saying they were there to beat me into the dirt. But I wasn't the guy they expected. When they boxed me in at my driveway, I was ready. The first guy took a crowbar to the knee, his scream bouncing off the houses. The second got a blast of pepper spray before I smashed his face into the asphalt. I left one breathing, just barely, and sent him back to Kane with a message: your turn's coming. Fourth move: endgame. Guys like Kane never see it coming when someone brings the fight to their front door. I studied his routine, his habits, every weak point I could uncover. It all pointed to a private yacht docked at a quiet marina, a floating fortress for his shadiest deals. Getting onto the boat was easier than I thought, his guards were too busy partying with the guests to notice me. I slipped on board, a duffel bag packed with homemade explosives slung over my shoulder. Down in the lower deck, I found the control room running the ship's systems. Wiring the bombs took less than 5 minutes, with a timer set for 20. As I headed to the upper deck, I caught voices, Kane's deep, smug tone cutting through. I couldn't help myself. I stepped into the lounge, and there he was, sprawled on a white leather couch, surrounded by half-dressed women and bottles of champagne. "Ryan," he said, his grin dripping with poison. "I had a feeling you'd show up." The room went dead quiet as every eye turned to me. "Victor," I replied, my voice calm as steel. "You took everything I had. Time I paid you back." His smirk flickered, a shadow of doubt creeping into his eyes. "You think you can take me down? You're nobody." I stepped forward, pulling out the detonator I'd wired to the explosives. "I don't need to take you down. I just need to send you to the bottom." Panic swept through the room as the guests caught on. Kane stood, his cool facade starting to crack. "You're full of it," he said, his voice shaky. I hit the button, the blast tore the yacht apart, splitting it clean in two as flames shot into the night. I dove into the water just before the explosion, the shockwave shoving me through the waves. I swam hard for the shore, my chest screaming for air, the sounds of panic and destruction growing faint behind me. Hauling myself onto the rocky beach, I glanced back at the burning wreckage. Kane's empire was going down, both the yacht and everything he'd built. Epilogue: the aftermath. They never recovered Kane's body. Maybe he sank with the ship, maybe he slipped away. Didn't matter to me. His mansion was ash, his yacht was scrap, and his whole operation was in ruins. As for Elise, I never got answers. I combed through the mansion's charred remains, sifted through every clue, but she was gone. Maybe dead, maybe free somewhere. I'll never know. Still, for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The thrill of destroying Kane faded fast. Even with his world in pieces, the wounds he'd left behind wouldn't stop bleeding. Elise's absence gnawed at me, but what hurt worse was knowing her family, folks I'd once called my own, had no clue what really happened. I figured they deserved the truth, no matter how ugly. But when I pulled up to her parents' place, it wasn't tears or questions waiting for me, it was pure disdain. "Ryan," Elise's mom, Marjorie, said, her voice cold as ice, clutching the door like she might slam it shut. "Haven't you caused enough trouble?" I stood there, stunned. What's that supposed to mean? "You let her walk into that mess," she snapped, her eyes blazing. You let her get tangled up with those people. I couldn't believe my ears. Marjorie, she made her own calls. I tried to stop her, but... Save it, she cut me off, her voice sharp as a blade. You think we don't see what kind of guy you are? Always smothering her, pushing her away. If she's gone, you're the reason. Her words hit like a punch to the gut. I wanted to yell, to tell her she didn't know the half of it, but the venom in her voice choked me silent. She's gone, I said, my voice shaking, and you're pinning it on me. You drove her to it, she hissed, slamming the door in my face. I sat in my truck for what felt like forever, Marjorie's accusations looping in my head. Maybe she had a point. Maybe I could have done more, been better. But as the doubts chewed at me, another thought crept in: what if they knew more than they were letting on? It wasn't just a hunch, it was instinct. Elise's family was tight, almost too tight, like they were hiding something. If anyone had a window into the world she'd fallen into, it was them. And if they weren't gonna talk willingly, I'd find another way to get answers. First step, dig into their past. Marjorie and Charles always played the part of upright, church-going folks. But when I started poking around, I found dirt. Marjorie was linked to a local charity that folded after whispers of stolen funds. Charles had a gambling problem that nearly cost them their house. They weren't as squeaky clean as they acted. The real kicker came when I cracked into Elise's old email account, something I swore I'd never do. Buried in a pile of everyday messages was an email thread from her sister, Natalie. "Watch out with Victor," one email warned. "Mom and Dad don't like you messing with him. He's bad news." Mom and Dad. They knew about Kane. Second step, get Natalie to talk. I tracked her down at her fancy boutique downtown, where she was fussing with overpriced scarves in the front window. She looked spooked when she saw me but covered it quick with a fake, syrupy smile. "Ryan," she said, her voice oozing pretend sympathy, "how you holding up?" "Drop the act," I said, stepping close. "You knew about Victor Kane. Your parents knew. And not one of you thought to clue me in." Her face went white. I've got no idea what you're going on about." I grabbed her wrist, leaning close so no one else could hear. "Don't play dumb, Natalie. Elise is gone because of him, and if you don't spill, I'll make sure the cops start digging into your whole family." Her mask slipped. Okay, just let go of me." I loosened my grip, and she rubbed her wrist, shooting me a dirty look. We kept quiet because we didn't want to get mixed up in it. "Victor, he's got eyes and ears everywhere. Big shots, powerful people. Mom and Dad were scared out of their minds." "Scared of what, exactly?" I pressed. She hesitated, then dropped her voice to a whisper. "Of what he'd do if we crossed him. Elise thought she could deal with him, but when she started talking about getting out." My gut twisted. "Getting out?" Natalie nodded, her eyes flicking around the shop nervously. "She wanted to break free. Said she'd seen some awful stuff, terrible things. But Victor doesn't let people just walk away." "Why didn't you go to the cops?" I asked, my voice getting louder. She shook her head fast. "You don't get it. Victor had dirt on all of us. If we opened our mouths, he'd destroy us. Step 3, make the family pay." Natalie's confession gave me the leverage I needed to tighten the screws on Marjorie and Charles. I started small, slipping bits of their shady history to local news outlets. When the stories broke, they scrambled, trying to keep their reputation intact. Then I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS about Charles's gambling debts and unreported cash. A few days later, feds showed up at their door with paperwork in hand. The knockout punch was a copy of Natalie's email chain I sent to Marjorie, attached with a short note: "Come clean, or this hits the headlines." Step 4, face to face. That night, Marjorie called, her voice shaky. "What do you want from us, Ryan?" she asked. The truth, I said flat out. What happened to Elise? There was a long silence, then a broken sob. She's dead, Marjorie whispered. Victor killed her. I shut my eyes, her words slamming into me like a truck. And you just sat there. We had no choice, she cried. He said he'd kill us too if we went to the police. He showed us photos, videos. His people are everywhere. We were just trying to stay alive. I hung up, sick to my stomach. They might have been terrified, but their spinelessness cost Elise her life. Step 5, finish it. Marjorie and Charles thought they'd dodged the worst, but I wasn't letting them off easy. They'd sold out Elise, left her to a monster, and they didn't get to walk away clean. I leaked it all, their ties to Victor, their silence about Elise's murder, their dirty money schemes. In weeks, their world collapsed. The town turned on them, their house was taken, and they became outcasts. Natalie bolted, but I hunted her down, making sure she knew the truth would follow her. When it was done, I stood outside the wreckage of their lives, feeling nothing but a hollow ache. Elise was gone, and no amount of payback would bring her back. But at least they'd answered for their cowardice. After tearing down Victor Kane's empire and ruining Elise's family, I thought the fire in me would finally die out. I figured I'd find some kind of calm. But there was nothing. The void Elise left was too big, and the truths I'd uncovered were too ugly to shake. Kane might be gone, but his shadow hung heavy. And there was one last loose end, the video. It started with a package left at my door. No sender, just a plain manila envelope with a USB drive inside. My gut screamed it was a setup, but I couldn't let it go. I plugged it into my laptop, and the screen flickered with a grainy video. Elise. She was in a shadowy room, the same basement I'd seen on Victor's monitor. Her face was pale, lips quivering as she spoke. If you're watching this, she said, then I didn't make it out. My heart stopped dead.